My guest today is Donna Marie Thompson. She's a two-time best-selling author who has spent most of her career in international management consulting. After working with the big boys, she formed EPS to help small business owners refine their business strategies and boost their profits and take every Friday off. She earned her PhD from George Washington University, an MBA from Virginia Polytechnic Institute, and she's also a CPA. So she's got a lot of information for you today on what she's going to be talking about, and her company is Expert Profit Solutions. Welcome, Donna Marie. How are you?
Thank you, Gail. It's great to be here.
Well, I know you talk a lot about small business owners, and that's a really sweet spot for you. So why don't you tell us how one of their weeks routinely finishes up? Are they ahead of schedule, behind schedule, or always kind of saying, where is my schedule?
Well, Gail, I've been talking to probably thousands of business owners across the country, and it seems the universal answer is, where did all the time go? So I would think fully 90% of small business owners I talk to have no idea. They're so far behind, but they're working really hard.
Well, that's the clue there. I mean, I don't think any small business owner does not work hard. They work very, very hard. In fact, they work harder when they're in business for themselves than if they were working for somebody else. Now, why do you think that happens?
Well, basically, it's when you're the chief cook and bottle washer and you do everything, you have to look at what you're earning per hour. So as a corporate strategist, you may be worth $400 an hour. Doing strategic planning, maybe financial planning, worth $300 an hour. Maybe a salesperson is $200 an hour. And how much of your time are you spend doing that? Or are you on email, social media, billing, all sorts of things? And those are probably in the $15 per hour category. So rather than spending a lot of time in really high value activities, most business owners, especially women, get stuck doing all sorts of administrivia, and it bogs them down, and it doesn't take their business forward.
Well, that's true. I mean, first of all, not only are you doing everything, chief cook and bottle washer, even when you have employees, you get stuck doing these things because you either don't like the way somebody else does them, or they haven't been trained properly, or whatever the reasons are. But the point is, you also don't want to give up control, which is some of the reasons why people don't bring in staff to do those kinds of things that you just talked about. So what do you do when everything in your business seems critical?
Well, that's a fatal flaw. You really have to step back from that. Now, there could be a week where you're getting something out the door, you're making a deliverable, you're working with a client. There can be periods in your business life where everything is up to you. But if that's the norm, then you've really got to step back and say, wait a minute, what needs to be done? What am I really good at? And what can I delegate? And I fully understand that delegating takes a little more time in the beginning. So if you really believe that everything's critical, if that goes on for more than 10 days, then you've got to really seriously reevaluate the way you're thinking, because there's something broken there.
Well, now, do you think it's because they think if they do it themselves, it's faster and easier? Do you think it's because they don't want to put out the money to hire other people? Is it because they believe nobody can do it like they can do it? I mean, they must give you their why I do all these things.
Well, the two reasons I get most often are, it's cheap, I can do it myself, but they don't understand that it's not cheap. And the other one is, I can do it better. And that may be true in the beginning, but I would challenge any small business owner to deconstruct the task. And there could be 10 steps, and maybe you can delegate 3 of those steps and just begin. And the key piece is you never abdicate your responsibility. You're still in charge, it's still your business. But you don't need to do everything. You can monitor, you can mentor, you can check in. And the more you delegate, the more you are encouraged to continue to delegate, but you've got to get started.
So the thing would be to make them somehow understand that yes, you can probably do it easier and faster in the beginning, but it's costing you money because it's an opportunity cost. Could be doing something else at the same time, and eventually, when someone does learn the process, they can do it just as quickly and as easy as you can. It's going to take you time to train. If it's a one-time task, certainly do it yourself. But if it's a repeatable task, then it's something that you can train somebody to do. And I get such kick out of the show Undercover Boss, because these people who are leading these big companies, or at least some of these that have many outlets, they can't do the tasks that their workers can do. I mean, especially in the restaurant business, I watch them behind the counter or trying to bake something or clean something, and they're so totally a misfit. And I'm thinking, the other people do it so easily, and that they're running this huge company. So it's true. I think you do have to make sure that you have a good training program in effect. So what other mistakes do these small business owners make that hurt profits?
Well, I want to add one other thing to the last one is some of the small business owners said that some of the employees came up with new ideas. So maybe you think you're doing it best, but there could be actually something, a whole fresh look might give you a new perspective. So,
I've got to tell you something that reinforces that. When I used to have my career schools, I used to schedule classes a certain way, and I don't ask me why I did it that way, but I did. And I had a new teacher come in, and she was watching me one day, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm scheduling classes." And she said, "Well, why are you doing it like that?" And of course, there's the answer of, that's the way I've always done it. And she said, "Well, have you ever tried it this way?" Well, I want you to know, from that time forward, I saved 4 hours a week.
wow.
4 hours a week. I mean, it was amazing. So I totally agree. And those companies that do have, a suggestion box, hopefully that doesn't have dust on it, that really gets looked at. I mean, there are some ideas may not be practical, or, you can't do them because of funding or whatever, but there are some good ideas out there. So you're absolutely right.
Cool.
So what are some of the other things that you were going to tell us that hurt profits?
Well, what I think one of the key pieces is that you're starting to work on something. If you're a writer or a consultant or something, and you just keep on spending more time polishing and polishing and polishing. So you have a promise with the client to deliver something, but the quality is up to you. So some people spend an extra 20 or 30% extra time buffing and polishing, and the client doesn't see it. So you're not going to get your money back. So it's really imperative that you have a minimum quality standard and a target quality standard. And then beyond that, if you want to do more, you need to talk to your client to see if they're willing to pay for more. So you get this misinterpretation that I worked at Price Waterhouse, and we would edit the final product for a month. Well, they can afford to do that, but small business can't. So it's really critical that you don't overcook it beyond what the client is expecting and will pay for.
Well, there's a certain part of the population that says good is good enough. Good is good enough. Now, I don't want to have that with a brain surgeon, but in most businesses, good is good enough. And I think if you're intent about doing a good job and you monitor results and you are always trying to get better, that doesn't negate the fact of always trying to get better. But I do think there are times that people go over and over and over it again. And I always talk about delegation as not delegation is not doing it like I do, but does it get done well enough? That's the key. And I always give the example of my kids when they were little. I had all these animals. I had 5 dogs and 3 cats. And so I would delegate the feeding of the dogs to my kids. And I would always measure the dog food and mix it a certain way and so forth and so on. And when the kids did it, they just really dumped it. And I thought, guess what? The dogs didn't care. They gobbled it up, So to me, it was kind of the same thing. But tell us a little bit. I know that the answer is no to this, as working hard is the answer. So how do small businesses work smarter?
Well, the key is I have a profit pyramid in my book, P Profit Potential, and it's really important that customer value and profit are on the top. And so when you do anything in your business, I always take a look at it. How does the customer benefit from this? And if that's the guidepost that you use, it'll save you tons of time of doing extraneous activities and just busy work. Does your client directly benefit? That's the key parameter.
Fantastic. Yeah, you've got to put the client first because, well, there's two people you have to put first. If you have employees, you've got to really take care of them as well. But your client has got to be put there as number one because we have to make sure that they're happy with us so they don't go somewhere else. So you mentioned your book. What are some of the tools that you have to relieve the pressure that small businesses go through? I mean, how do you help them?
Well, one of the key pieces is the strategic value of an hour. Most people don't realize that as the CEO, you can charge 300, and as a strategist, it's 200. There's all sorts of really high-end work. And what I target the doing is how much of your time do you spend doing that? And I try to divide your week into like 4 major bubbles of activity. And one is really high-end strategy and sales, the revenue pieces of your business. And then there's operations, and there's other type of administration, and each business is different. And if people would be astonished to see how much time they truly spend in the non-strategic bubbles, in the non-revenue bubbles of their time. And so it's really the strategic value thinking is that you're a thoroughbred. And are you doing a thoroughbred activity right now? And once people begin to change the way they think about themselves, they look and say, well, I'm never doing email, I'm never doing this again, I'm never doing that again. And you begin to pull away from those time sinks and those time traps. And that's the key beginning. And I've had so many ahas where people say, oh, I had no idea that if I gave you an hour, you could put that hour to selling, how much money is that into your business? It's just a remarkable breakthrough.
I love the idea of thinking of yourself as a thoroughbred. I think that's fabulous because really it is thinking of yourself in a whole different direction. And, there are people, I mean, if you want to check your email, I think that's great, but that doesn't mean check it all day, all the time. I know for me, I usually check it if I'm not going out in the morning, then I'll check it first thing. Then I'll check it at noon, and then I'll check it at 5 o'clock. But I'm not on it all day. And I think that that's a key. And, of course, people get sucked into social media like crazy. So I think that's a part of it as well. So you also have this theory about taking Friday off. And I know a lot of people would like to do that, but they're still kind of tied to their cell phone. I so admire the families that say, 5 o'clock comes or 6 o'clock comes or 7 o'clock comes, whatever dinner time is, cell phones down. We are actually going to talk to each other at the dinner table, and I'm going to spend time with the family. So I think that's admirable. But I know a lot of people go on vacation, and they're still tied to their cell phone. So how do you take, realistically, Friday off?
Well, I can find you 20% of the time that you're not doing things that really advance your business. I guarantee it, actually, that when you look at what you're doing, and we'll take away what you don't need to be doing, and that will save you at least 8 hours, and that's the equivalent of Friday. So the key thing, I've met a lot of people you're talking about with the cell phone. Unless you're a cardiac surgeon or an OBGYN, that's an emergency. But in business, or maybe a printer, you've got a heavy deadline, those are exceptions. But in the general run of business, if you've got all these emergencies, there's some business processes that are broken. And we also train our clients that I'm available between this hour and this hour. I mean, let's just say 9 to 7. So, pick some hours where you're readily available to clients, and you will take calls. And other than that, then you don't. Because in business, there are very few true emergencies. So if you've got a special project, that's fine, but that's a one-time deal. But if you live your life glued to your phone, glued to your email, always behind, always just in a fluffle, we really need to talk, because that is not the way you can strategically advance your business. That's not the way to serve your customers. That's not the way to get more profits. Something's broken.
So if I'm a person who wants to be available every minute of every day. And you talk about, getting those extra 8 hours so you can take a Friday off. It's very hard for people to change their habits and their thinking.